Hello and welcome back to Stories with me, Jesse. And today we're once again looking at the people who ask us to decide if their actions were justified over at Reddit/Am I the A-hole. Let me know what you think of these stories in the comments, as well as any suggestions you might have that we may just use in a future installment. Prepare yourself to reach an unbiased verdict, because we're getting started now. Our first story is titled, Am I the a-hole for child locking my aunt and then leaving her at a gas station? I'm 16 female. My aunt, 33 female, lives with my family. She has me drive her around and refuses to sit in the front passenger seat because she wants to act like it's a taxi/chauffeur situation, which is shitty of her, but I haven't said anything. The other day, we were driving through a restaurant drive-thru and it was packed. The parking lot was full. My aunt got out of the car while we were in the drive-thru, and I asked what the f*** she was doing. She told me she was getting claustrophobic, and I told her to stay in the car so she doesn't get hit by another car. My reasoning for saying this is she wanted to walk close to the actual road to smoke, where traffic's busy. You know, normal road. She ignored me and got out anyway, so when I pulled up to the drive-thru, I got out and put child locks on the back doors. I did this because my aunt has done this several times before. She has almost gotten hit when she does it, and once had her foot run over by a car because she does it, which, by the way, she blamed on me even though another car ran over her foot. I got our food, my aunt gets back in, we get on the main road. It's a traffic jam. My aunt tries getting out of the car again and finds that she's child locked. She starts screaming and cussing at me, calling me a little motherfucker and screaming at me to let her out. So when we could pull over again, I pulled over, let her out, and told her she could call someone else for a ride home. I left her at a gas station. I got home and my parents asked where my aunt was. I explained what happened. My mom told me I was in the right, and my dad flipped his shit. He told me to go out and pick her back up, and I told him to pick her up himself because I'm done driving her around because she acts like a toddler. He decided it was appropriate to call me a spoiled bitch before leaving to pick her up. Am I the a-hole for child locking my aunt and then leaving her at a gas station? I don't think you are, considering that you've been dealing with her attitude for a while now, and your aunt has no right to bark orders at you when you're obviously doing her a kindness by taking her places. Maybe you didn't need to child lock her or leave her at a gas station, but from how you've described the whole ordeal, I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't have wanted to do the same thing. Moving on, our next story is called, Am I the a-hole for suing my girlfriend after she had my 1967 Impala project taken to the scrapyard? I'll try and keep this short. I had a 1967 Impala 4-door that I bought in February 2019. A couple months ago, I bought my first house that had a 2.5 car garage. I moved the car in and started tearing it down for a complete restoration. I had the body in one bay and the chassis in another, plus the whole garage filled with parts. About 2 months ago, my girlfriend came to live with me during this whole crisis, and the whole time has hated that car. She wants to park in the garage, but I have 2 acres of land with a lot of nice places to park under shady trees, or hell, even in the barn if it has to be inside. I tell her tough luck, it's my house, and it's not like I can just throw it back together real quick. Anyways, I was out of town for a couple days on a business trip for the small company I work for. When I got back, my girlfriend was all smiles, making me food all the time, doing all the chores, all that. I thought maybe she was just happy to have me home, but then I realized that I didn't see her car in its usual spot. I asked her where she parked so I could make sure I mow that area and keep it clean, and she said not to worry because she parked it in the garage. I asked how, and she told me to go check it out. Turns out that while I was gone, she hired some people to come over and move everything related to that car, including the drivetrain, body, chassis, and all parts, and take it to the local dump/scrapyard. I was absolutely dumbfounded. I had spent over $11,000 on that car, including new parts, services, and the car itself. I told her that I was going to be taking her to court for that, and she brushed me off like I was being dramatic. I told her that it is done between us, and to pack her things and leave. I admit I was really angry, but I did end up getting a lawyer, and as I have all the receipts for all that money spent, and I have her on my house's security cam footage, letting the guys in and watching them take it all. I think I can win. Her family and friends are absolutely blowing me up, saying it's just a stupid old piece of junk and that she cannot pay back all the money I spent and that I should just let it go. But I have been putting all my time, effort, and money into that car for a year and a half now, and damn it if I am not going to get justice for what she did. Am I the a-hole? No, sir, you are not the a-hole. That car was on your property, and she had no right to wait for you to leave and take matters into her own hands just so that she could have the garage for herself. Considering how much money you've put into this car, I think you're handling things more politely than others might have in a similar situation. I'll admit that I have plenty of family members who pile junk cars around their properties, but you were obviously working on a passion project, and your girlfriend should have respected that. But what do you guys think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Our next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for walking out of my father's funeral? Important info. I'm a Caucasian female, early 30s, married to a lovely mixed male, and we have a 2-year-old. I've cut contact with my family about 5 years ago, mostly due to my mother's narcissistic behavior and her being pretty darn racist. She hated me dating my now husband, and the rest of my family condoning the crap she put us through. Most of my other relatives cut ties with my family before I was born, or shortly after. I'm thinking it's once again because of my mother. The only one that kept in touch was one aunt from my father's side. This happened yesterday. Last Friday, I got a call from my aunt that my dad got into an accident 2 days prior and didn't make it. He died on impact, apparently. She asked me if I'd heard anything from my family, to which I replied no. Important to know that I've been using the same cell phone number and email since I was 18 or so. She figured they forgot and asked me if I wanted to come to the funeral. After a few minutes of thinking, I told her I'd come if my family was okay with it and if she wanted me to. I explained to her that I wouldn't be going for myself or my father/family, just to support her. She said she'd want me there, as she'd have no other support, and called me later to tell me my family was okay with me coming. So yesterday was the day of the funeral. The past few days, I did not hear a single thing from my family. When I got to the location, my family members jumped right on top of me, telling me how happy they were that I came, that we should go to dinner, told me all kinds of stories about things that happened the last 5 years. They basically acted like those 5 years didn't happen, and we weren't there for a funeral. I know grief does things to people, so I let it slide and played along, but it made me feel really uneasy, and I made sure not to give any details about my own family or job, as they know nothing about that, and I wanted to keep it that way, as it was not the time and place for an argument about my husband. During the ceremony, they insisted that I sat next to my mother. Everything started out okay, but when it was time for speeches, my family insisted I'd speak. I quietly told them no, that I had nothing prepared, but they didn't accept it. So I got up and quickly said, "He'll be missed," and sat down again. They visibly were not happy with me, and my mother started shouting at me, telling me I was a worthless bitch, that I'd always treated them without any respect, and that I was a bitch for not giving an actual speech about how amazing my father was in front of the 150 plus people that had shown up. So I just looked at her for a few seconds, mostly trying to figure out what the hell just happened, stood up, told her to enjoy the rest of her day, and walked out. My husband told me I did the right thing, and he was proud of me for keeping my cool instead of starting a shouting match. So is my aunt, but I've been bombarded with messages from people that say I went too far. Am I the a-hole? You are definitely not the a-hole in my opinion, considering that the only member of the family who communicated with you or treated you with an ounce of respect was your aunt. The fact that they pretended to be happy to see you, just to turn on you a moment later, solidifies that you're better off without them in your life. I can't believe they'd put you on the spot to say a speech about your father when they didn't even bother telling you that he had died. Some people know nothing other than how to create drama and feed on it. Our final story is called, Am I the a-hole for telling our family that my sister is a prostitute after she insulted my wife's disability? So my wife is a paraplegic. She was when I first met her. It's from an accident a long time ago, but she's adapted well to it. I love her, and she's just as useful as someone who can walk. My sister, for some reason, has never liked my wife. She's always had some problem with her, whether she claims it's attitude or something else. I've talked to my wife about it, and she doesn't know why. And I've talked to my sister about it, and she's never given me a straight answer on why she doesn't like her. I had just accepted it until now. Not everybody likes everyone else, and until now, my sister hadn't said anything rude about it. Now, my sister was a prostitute in college, and she claims she's just camming now. She doesn't have a job, she just does that. She told me because I found out accidentally once. She made me hide it to our family and claims she has a job at a company near us. I was talking to my sister on the phone last week because she wanted me to fix her sink, or at least look at it, because her landlord wasn't doing anything about it. I had told her I didn't know when I could because I've been remodeling one of our bathrooms, which has turned into a larger project than I really bargained for. I might end up just hiring someone to do it, honestly. My sister then, for no reason, made a comment about my wife. She said, "Why don't you just have her," my wife, who I had just said something to, "make herself useful and help." Or wait, she can't because of her disability. She said this mockingly, as if being in a wheelchair isn't a disability. I had the phone on speakerphone and my wife heard. She was pretty hurt by it, and I was beyond pissed off. I yelled at her and hung up. After consoling my wife a bit, I decided to call our parents and tell them what my sister actually does for her job. They thanked me for telling them, and that was that. Then my sister called me again and yelled at me, saying our whole family is calling her, telling her to stop, and staging an intervention for her. I told her she should have thought about that before being a bitch to my wife, and hung up. It's been a few days, and now I'm thinking I went a little nuclear on her. At the time, I felt like yelling at her wasn't enough, but now I think maybe yelling would have been enough. Am I the a-hole? Oh boy. The Reddit community has decided that everyone sucks here, and I'd have to agree with them. What your sister has been saying and how she's been treating your wife is ridiculously insensitive. For sure, she is the biggest a-hole. And trying to remain unbiased, I kind of feel like she got what was coming to her. But what you did in retaliation was an ass move, regardless of if she deserved it or not. It's normal to lash back if someone is insulting your wife, and who knows what I'd do if I was in a similar position. Do you guys feel the same way that I do, or do you perhaps feel differently about any of today's stories? I always value the perspective of the community in the comments and welcome you to share your own judgments below. Anyways, that's about all the time we have for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks again for tuning in with me, Jesse. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content, and check out what other stories I have for you. Have a beautiful day, and don't be an a-hole.